40 years ago, the Earth was hit by a meteor, creating a massive catastrophe, and now Korea has turned into a country like a barren desert. In 2071, only 1% of the world's population survived. After this incident, all food ingredients became very scarce, and even oxygen was running low, so they had to wear oxygen masks to avoid getting worse air pollution. This situation made the government choose people who could be saved. Those who could be saved would be identified with a QR code, and who did not get the code will be considered refugees without identification. In the air-polluted post-apocalyptic world, refugees must depend on deliveries of supplies such as oxygen to survive. The delivery man would be heroes for them because only the delivery man could deliver clean oxygen to every refugee who needed it. The courier's journey was not easy because while delivering the goods, the couriers had to fight refugees who were robbing them of oxygen and food. A delivery man with the nickname 5 to 8 was a legendary delivery man. He was considered the strongest among the couriers. Becoming a delivery man was a dream for every refugee to get a QR code. On the other hand, in a refugee district in Gangnam, a man named Yoon So-wol, a courageous refugee, wanted to become a delivery man. He trained to fight to be selected as a delivery man. He aspired to be a delivery man, much like the famous 5 to 8. Elsewhere, 5 to 8 was delivering oxygen to a refugee's home. The man would have almost died had 5 to 8 not arrived in time to give him oxygen. Shortly after, 5 to 8 received a message that refugees robbed a courier. He immediately went there to help his friend. Upon arriving there, 5 to 8 beat them one by one. Even so, he did not kill them, released the refugees, and told them not to steal anymore. So-wol was on his way home in the public district when he saw a child caught by the guards, even though the house owner allowed the child to stay. It turned out that So-wol was an intruder without a QR code in the public district. He lived with Major Jung Seola from the Defense Intelligence Command and his younger sister Jung Sula for over a decade. So-wol was scolded by Major Jung Seola for running away from the general district so often. He was punished for not leaving the house for 2 weeks because of his actions. Seola's attempted to obtain a QR code for So-wol through official channels had been futile, indicating that some effort had undoubtedly been made to preserve the current state of affairs. Elsewhere, 5 to 8 got an unknown message to meet at Gate 8 at 5 p.m. Meanwhile, a man named Ryu Seok was the son of the owner of the Chimneong Group. Chimneong Group was the company that cooperated with the government to build all the shelters and was the only company that supplied oxygen to refugees. With his wealth, Ryu Seok lived in a special, magnificent district filled with greenery. It was very different from the refugee district. Ryu Seok disliked his father, who always obeyed the president discussing district relocation. So-wol turned out to be disobeying Sela's orders. He was constantly sneaking out and getting himself into trouble. He and his 3 friends robbed a distribution car. It turned out that the vehicle they would steal was driven by 5 to 8. They managed to get on top of the truck, but 5 to 8 realized this and immediately turned it left and right. As a result, they fell after 5 to 8 activating the voltage. So-wol, who managed to survive, got into the car. So-wol, who was yet to become an expert in martial arts, even challenges 5 to 8 to a duel. But the legend did not take long to quickly throw So-wol out of the car. Finally, 5 to 8 arrived at Gate 8. It was a covered construction of a brand new District A. The respected 5 to 8 was guided there, while Major Jung Seola was also there along with a few other DIC members in search of information. Seola felt something strange because the officers there were covering up what had happened in District A. At night, Stella's car was blocked by a truck. It turned out that the truck belonged to 5 to 8, and the person who had sent the message yesterday was Major Jung. However, they did not seem to know each other, so no one would suspect anything. They were currently investigating the movements of the Chimneong Group. Meanwhile, So-wol returned home after another rash adventure in which he attempted to fight 5 to 8. While traveling to District A, Sula was furious because So-wol did not obey her sister, and then she locked up So-wol in an empty room to stop him from escaping. On the other hand, 5 to 8 was in the refugee district. There he distributed oxygen to refugees in need. Besides from 5 to 8, several deliverymen distributed oxygen and food to the refugees. After that, 5 to 8 met a refugee whom he calls his big brother. They discussed the construction of a new district that the Chimneong Group was planning. The next day, 5 to 8 sent oxygen to the public district at Jung Seola's house. Jung Sula, who idolized 5 to 8, immediately asked for a photo. So-wol missed an appearance from 5 to 8 since he was forcefully locked inside the room. Following that, a team of assassins broke in. Their goal was to rob oxygen and food. In an apparent attempt to abduct Sula, they pinned her down while they attempted to inject her. So-wol managed to break out, and he ended up killing several of them. However, Sula got shot in the process and was dead. After that, Sol was drilled from behind. 5 to 8 who heard the gunshots checked inside. 5 to 8 was shocked after seeing some of the murder victims. At that time, he also knew that this house belonged to Major Jung Seola, and his sister, Jung Seola, had become a victim of this murder. While examining the corpses, 5 to 8 found the tattoos of the killers. 5 to 8 remembered Sewol, who had challenged him to a fight yesterday. After investigating the damage, 5 to 8 took Sewol, who was seriously hurt, along with him. In the afternoon, Seola, who knew that his house had been murdered, immediately went there. Seola burst into tears when she saw her younger sister lying lifeless. Then Seola ordered Sergeant Lee to investigate this case and find the culprit. Meanwhile, Sewol, shot in the back of the head, woke up as if nothing had happened. 4 to 1, who had expertise in the medical field, explained that Sewol was immune to bullets. 5 to 8, who heard that, was surprised. Moreover, he saw the wound on his leg, which had bones like titanium. Maybe that was what made him immune to bullets. One day, Seola visited Grandpa's place, which Sewol usually visited. There, she asked about the whereabouts of Sewol, who disappeared after yesterday's incident. The next day, 5 to 8 went to the special district to meet with Seola. He would be interrogated for investigation because yesterday it was 5 to 8 who made the emergency call. 5 to 8 then explained the chronology, and he related this case to the kidnapping case that was currently rampant in the general district. Seola's passing has deeply affected Seola and Sewol. Sewol entered their home and began looking at pictures of them when Seola was busy interrogating 5 to 8 regarding the crime. That night when she returned to her apartment, she was startled by Sewol's voice. While crying, Sewol apologized and said he did not remember that incident. Sewol could not stay there with Seola because it was too dangerous. In the end, Seola allowed Sewol to live with his companions. The scene moved to 9 years ago when Major Jung Seola and the other military were cleansing the killing refugees. It was done because they did not have a QR code, which was considered illegal. Horrified by what she was engaging in, Seola avoided murdering any remaining survivors and secretly brought Sewol home. However, Sewol, frustrated with his life, made a pit stop to confront the gang he defeated before. He sought retribution for his guilt by asking them to hurt or murder him. Fortunately, his companions helped and managed to save Sewol, but they could not stop him from getting injured, which put him in an unconscious state for a few days. They always accompanied Sewol until he woke up. Meanwhile, 5 to 8 and other deliverymen finally started investigating a group of people with the same tattoos as the group carrying out the murders. He followed them, who turned out to have kidnapped several teenage children who they thought were experimental subjects. Sewol, whose condition has improved, still felt guilty for not being able to save Jung Seola. Meanwhile, deliveryman code 5 to 7, assisted by 5 to 8 during the robbery yesterday, was seen visiting Ryu Seok. 5 to 7 said he wanted to stop being a delivery man because it tortured him so much. It turned out that 5 to 7 was the perpetrator of the human experiment kidnapping masterminded by Ryu Seok. 5 to 7 did that because he was promised to live in a special district by Ryu Seok. 5 to 7 could not betray because, in his head, some kind of device was installed that could kill him whenever Ryu Seok wanted. After that, Ryu Seok met his father to discuss the recent incident. His father did not trust Ryu Seok to lead the company because their visions differed. His father wanted to improve the living conditions of poor people, while Ryu Seok wanted to finish off the refugees without identity because he thought they were the cause of all these problems. When 5 to 8 met the grandpa who used to take care of Sewol, 5 to 8 claimed that the bullet used to shoot Sewol harmlessly ricocheted off him without hurting him. Hearing that, Grandpa then told Sewol's family origins. Previously, his father was a mining worker and lived in a place filled with radioactivity. They speculated that Sewol could be a mutant. The next day at the freight station, 5 to 8 saw 5 to 7 who were about to commit suicide. 5 to 8 intervened to stop him. 5 to 8 already knew that the recent kidnapping was carried out by 57, so he interrogated him. 5 to 7 said that the kidnapped victims would be used as experimental subjects. Still, when he was about to tell the mastermind behind all this, an implant suddenly in his head destroyed his nervous system and killed him instantly. Ryu Seok, of course, did this. He did not want his crime to be exposed. With the loss of 5 to 7, Ryu Seok announced that he would open a new deliveryman recruitment to everyone. Finally, the news reached Sewol, who wanted to be a delivery man. Sewol believed it was simply a chance for him to live out his dream of becoming a delivery man. The scene moved to 9 years ago when 5 to 8 was still a refugee. 5 to 8 managed to kill several soldiers. Even so, he was shot down by 2 soldiers. 5 to 8 was brutally dumped within a mass grave, and his corpse was to be burned alongside everyone else's. However, 5 to 8 managed to survive and kill the remaining soldiers. Since that, he had hatred for the ruler. It was what made 5 to 8 insisted on joining as a delivery man so he could gain access to avenge himself. No matter how long it took, 5 to 8 would carry out its mission. In the present, Sawwall stood in the center of the street in front of 5 to 8's approaching truck, and with 5 to 8 driving, he accelerated towards Sawwall. Sawwall stated that he hoped to participate in the scheduled delivery man competition, saying that since 5 to 8 was the strongest delivery man, he wanted his help. Although initially refused, 5 to 8 finally agreed to train Sawwall. 5 to 8 informed Sawwall of the date and location, asking that he show his skills. 5 to 8 also asked Sawwall to be firm with his version of himself. Afterward, 5 to 8 secretly met with 10 other deliverymen in the old training center. On the other hand, Major Jung Seola received a report that the movement of 5 to 8 looked suspicious. She immediately moved to follow them. Meanwhile, 5 to 8 said that Chanyeong's group tried to kidnap children. Through the competition, they intended to reach Cheonmyeon using Sawwall. Seola, who continued to investigate Seola's death, interrupted their conversation. 5 to 8 told her that 5 to 7 had been killed by a device placed behind his head. Then, 5 to 8 showed Seola the symbol that Cheonmyeon's criminals all appear to have. He also said that their motive was to kidnap children. Hearing all that, Major Jung Seola ordered his team to find people with this symbol. One day, Major Jung Seola met Ryu Seok, who planned to relocate to District A. To do this, Ryu Seok wanted to see all the databases in all zones. Of course, the data was confidential, so Major Jung immediately rejected Ryu Seok's request. It turned out that he wanted his father's company to implement the relocation program so he could commit his crimes under the pretext of planning relocation. Sawwall showed up at the small gym sometime later, where 5 to 8 and 4 to 1 started preparing him to compete in the Deliveryman Tournament's opening round. Sawwall was taught to fight and scan enemy movements. After the training time was over, Sawwall then registered his name. Finally, he managed to get an identity card with the name of Refugee 34. After that, Sawwall returned and trained hard. A large group of competitors, including Sawwall, were filled together for the first round of the competition. They were asked to fight with each other while the oxygen level in the room kept dropping. The last person standing advanced to the second round. In the end, Sawwall managed to win the first round. In the second round of the competition, competitors must deliver a package to a specified destination while being constantly pursued by dangerous and fully equipped hunters in their vehicles. Ryu Seok sat in the same room as 5 to 8, who was monitoring the live footage. In the countdown, the participants finally started moving. Sawwall fought without fear and helped his other rivals against the hunters as best he could. In the end, Sawwall made it to the finish line with one of the participants he helped. Even though Sawwall managed to cross the finish line, he was disqualification due to helping a fellow participant. Not long after, news came that the participant who passed had a broken arm injury, so he withdrew. To give the refugees a sense of hope, Sawwall was brought back. Again, Ryu Seok requested Major Jung Seola to provide population data in all zones, but she refused, citing privacy concerns. After that, Seola got information about someone who had a tattoo symbol on his neck. They quickly stalked the man. Unfortunately, when he was about to be arrested, the man accidentally detonated the implant implanted in his head. The next day, Sawwall advanced to the next stage of the competition to have his final fight. Arriving there, he met Seola, who was amazed at Sawwall's mood determination. The mentor assigned to him was 4 to 1. Interestingly, no one was aware of their prior relationship. Despite all this, Sawwall was also given some short-term accommodation. It turned out that Ryu Seok was deliberately promoting the son of an anonymous refugee. The plan worked as all the refugees cheered in support of Sawwall. Before the fight started, 4 to 1 gave lessons so that Sawwall could find out his opponent's weaknesses. The final match would begin. The battle occurred within the core district, where it was possible to breathe. The refugees then gathered at the various venues where Cheonmyeon would host the match screening. The fight would be airing live, and in exchange for the refugees' attendance, both meals and compressed oxygen will be provided. Sawwall looked happy because the place was filled with green trees. Suddenly, 5 to 8 received information from colleagues about the existence of tattoo groups. He came to them and killed them all. 5 to 8 leaves one person to be questioned regarding the mastermind behind this kidnapping. After that, 5 to 8 immediately removed the implant on the back of the tattooed man's head. While in the core district, the final match finally started. All eyes were on this fight, hoping that Sawol would win. In the first round, Sawol was beaten by his opponent until he was black and blue. When the first round was over, Sawol explained that he deliberately did not fight to discover his opponent's weaknesses. At the same time, 5-8, who was holding the tattooed man hostage, then took his cell phone and discovered Ryu Seok's scheme in the district at this point. He planned to lure the refugees together to blow them up. Knowing that 5-8 immediately sent emergency news to his other colleagues. Return to the core district, and the second round has finally begun. Sawol did the same thing. He let his opponent keep beating him. In that fight, Sawol suffered a head wound. It was clear that the skull was titanium. 4-1, who saw this, immediately covered his wound. In the third round, Sawol could finally read his opponent's movements, so he managed to land a punch that knocked his opponent down. The refugees who saw that cheered on Sawol's victory. But not long after, suddenly, a bomb exploded in multiple refugee settlements, killing those living there. It was part of the evil plan carried out by Ryu Seok. 5-8 rushed towards the districts, but he was too late. Sawol was going through personal difficulties shortly after winning the competition. He remembered the incident that took Jung Seula's life. Seeing the wound on his forehead, Sawol realized he was a mutant. Before officially becoming a delivery man, Sawol must undergo a medical test. After a series of procedures passed, Sawol finally became formally a delivery man. Sawol received a QR code, making him the new 5-7. However, his mutant situation, which was now widely known, puts him in danger, particularly from Ryu Seok. Ryu Seok noticed it when his metallic skull could be seen, owing to the cut on his forehead, and Ryu Seok was suffering from a rare deadly disease. Therefore, he continued to kidnap many teenagers and conduct experiments to find a cure for him. After Sawol got a checkup done and the doctor informed Ryu Seok with delight that Sawol was a healthy mutant. After seeing Sawol's blood results, he ordered the doctors to experiment by mixing Sawol's blood with someone with the same disease. After the experiment, the man was instantly healed after Sawol's blood was mixed with his own. 5-8, as well as the other ex-refugee delivery men, decided to act independently by abducting Ryu Seok and stopping a relocation plan in District A. Seola also cooperated with them and began to share information. Seola stated that all men with triangle tattoos had undergone brain operations to render them emotionless. It was intended that if they made a mistake one day, they would not hesitate to commit suicide. Even though they were sure that all of these crimes were committed by Ryu Seok without concrete proof, Seola could not formally pursue him. One day, they planned something involving a hostage they had previously captured. When the hostage was sleeping, suddenly, there were gunshots from outside. Shortly after that, several people came to save him. There was also a shootout at that time, so the hostage managed to escape. Then he went to the car to go somewhere. In that place, he also contacted his boss for help. Not long after, his boss named, Mr. O finally came. He was Ryu Seok's accomplice. Then the hostage explained that he had been held captive by 5-8 for several days. Luckily, the rescue team came so he could escape. Hear that Mr. O knows they are falling into a trap because they never sent a rescue team. At that moment, 5-8 and Seola finally appeared, and their suspicions were correct that Ryu Seok was the culprit. They then forced Mr. O to divulge Ryu Seok's next plan so they could catch him. The next day, Seola came to see Chairman Ryu Jae-jin. Seola informed that yesterday's bomb explosion was carried out by his son. Seola also said that Ryu Seok had kidnapped the children and polluted the air in the district. Chairman Ryu was horrified by what his son had done because he created the Air Corps to help people. As a consequence, Chairman Ryu gave the president authority over the supply and distribution of oxygen in an attempt to stop Ryu Seok. Unacceptable, Ryu Seok, accompanied by the Minister of Defense, killed his father. The next step in Ryu Seok's takeover strategy was a coup now that the government was in charge. The district relocation program seemed to be in its final stages. Refugees were asked to follow a procedure whereby they were required to register to undergo a physical examination and be vaccinated before entering a public area. However, it was not a vaccine but a poison that could kill them. Everybody who received a medical checkup or vaccination died, proving that Ryu Seok's strategy worked. On the other hand, 5-8 visited the grandpa who used to be Ryu Seok's father's best friend. Then grandpa gave a map of the location in the core district. The map would be handy to find out where Ryu Seok was hiding so he could kill him. 5-8 and the other couriers eventually learned of the poison-laced vaccinations. They quickly acted to stop it. Just then Sawol saw one of his friends who was about to be shot by soldiers. Sawol promptly helped him. But unfortunately, Sawol was too late because his friend had been shot. During the commotion, Sawol seemed to have been caught by the soldiers. After that incident, Seola and her intelligence command joined forces with 5-8 and his deliverymen to invade the core district. They used the map Grandpa created with Chairman Ryu to carry out their plan. A smoke bomb was thrown into the courtyard of Qin Myong's office. Then 5 to 8 and his team got off the helicopter and immediately attacked the guards. At the same time, Ryu Seok was carrying out the blood transfusion process belonging to Sewol. After that, he was informed that his office was being raided. In the end, Ryu Seok went to the control room, taking Sewol as a hostage. Meanwhile, Seola struggled to get to where the president was held hostage by a government minister. After successfully barging in to arrest the minister, Major Jung Seola asked Ryu Seok to turn himself in immediately. It was knowing that he seemed unable to believe his defeat. Unexpectedly, he activates the explosive button that can destroy the entire city so that refugees die with him. After the switch was started, the alarm went off in every corner of the town. All the residents of the district then left the place. Likewise, with 5 to 8, he was seen taking Sewol away. 3 months later, the president finally announced that the construction of District A had been completed, and now all refugees were free to enter without discrimination. As the skies over the Korean peninsula at last started to clear, 5 to 8 and Sewol continued to be delivery men and have grown closer than ever. So, what do you think about this movie? Leave it in the comments below, and if you liked the video, please like and subscribe for more movie recaps.